Hi everyone. For the benefit of those watching this after our event, this is our pilot random speed networking event for arts and culture professionals for whom lunchtime is around 1 p.m. in Australia and New Zealand and thereabouts. So this is great. So we thought it might be nice to record this so that others who weren't able to come can meet everybody, which is great. So we're going to do a round of introductions. So Don, do you mind if I come to you first? Ironically, you're not in either Australia or New Zealand, but it's very kind of you to come. So let's do a round of 2-minute intros. Don, is that okay?
That's just fine.
Doesn't have to be 2 minutes, by the way. It can be 20 seconds if you prefer.
There you go. Hi, I'm Don Youngberg, and I live in the United States in a city called New Haven, Connecticut, which is near New York City, a couple of hours away from New York City. And my journey through the arts and culture world is I started out working in theater and opera, and then changed over to working in software for arts and cultural institutions, which I've done most of my career, and including a lot of clients in Australia and New Zealand. And so that's what drew me to this call, to be really honest. And then but recently, as Mark has been alluding, I just started kind of a new career, a new path, which is I work for Yale University at the Yale Institute of Sacred Music, and I'm managing a choir and also their music library and a few other things, kind of my passions right now, which are community building and choral music, and Yale University, which is in the town where I live, and I went to school here many years ago in theater, and so that's where I am right now. But I love networking, and that's how I met up with Mark a couple of years ago when he started doing these. It was like I felt like I almost had like a brother in community building, and so that's where I am. You're muted, Mark.
You'd think after doing this for so long, I'd have got that one right, wouldn't you?
That's right.
Thank you, Don, very much. It's very kind of you to join us. Mark, would you like to introduce yourself? A couple of minutes, or as long as you wish.
It's perhaps ironic that I should come after Don, because I feel almost related to you, Don, because my father used to teach at Yale.
Oh, is that right?
For the best part of 30 years in the English department. He's quite a bit older than you are. He's in his late 80s now, and he left in 2018. But I visited New Haven twice in my time. I very much enjoyed it. And anyway, my name is Mark also. I'm also from England. I hasten to emphasize that not everyone in England is called Mark. I live in Taiwan, which is where I am now, and I'm a Chinese English translator. And the reason I joined the network is that one of my specialisms as a translator is very much in the arts. The reason that happened is that I 23 years ago started a weekly job, just 2 hours a week actually, at the National Museum of History here in Taipei. As a Chinese linguist, if you work as an editor, almost inevitably people gravitate towards you who are looking for translation work. And fortunately, that's what happened. And actually 3 years after I started editing at the National Museum of History, I became a freelance translator and editor. So I'm both a translator and editor, and I do a lot of work in the arts, although also in other fields. That really is my story.
That's great, Mark. Thank you very much. Can I come to Danny next? Danny, would you like to introduce yourself to us and tell us about what gets you up in the morning?
Coffee. So I work with a group called Arts Hub Australia Proprietary Limited, which covers 4 digital publishing mastheads. So we have Arts Hub Australia, we have Screen Hub Australia, then we have Games Hub Global and Arts Hub UK. So we're essentially full-fledged digital publishers for all facets of the arts, screen, film, TV, gaming communities. So our various mastheads, so it's literally screenhub.com.au, artshub.com.au and gameshub.com. And then of course .co.uk for our Arts Hub branch. So we've been around about 22 years for the Arts Hub side of things. And we have a team of, we're a very small team, but we have a team of journalists that cover breaking news in the arts sector. They create native content for my team. So I'm head of commercial team. They, advocates for pursuing various angles of, really important areas in the arts. At the moment, we've just launched an Amplify Collective, which essentially is a project where we're really expanding on the voice of diverse and diverse cultural and all-inclusive writers. So, and really reaching all the far stretches of Australia. So we've brought 40 budding journalists on to the program, and that's at the moment a funded program for 6 months, but really important for us to have that really culturally diverse voice and, making sure that we're completely inclusive, and as well as the diversity side of things. And our screen arm has been around about 12 years, and Games Hub is a startup. So we launched last year, year before last, and it's sort of very early stages, but we've got 2 of Australia's best gaming journalists on board. And our real point of difference is that we have an office here in Australia, so we can cover, local, hyper-local happenings. And there's a lot of games publishers happening in Australia, and great work there, but also, covering global news as well. And, the unique position that we are ahead of time for the rest of the world. So we, break some news articles that way for Games Hub. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
That's great, Danny. I've been scribbling down introductions that I can make through the network for
particularly for UK, because UK is quite a junior branch for us. So, open to anything. Like, if we're looking at commercial partners, we're completely independent, self-funded. So we have a membership base for Arts Hub and Screen Hub. So the membership model is that we actually started, I think, almost 23 years ago with Arts Hub as a jobs board for artists. And we've, fully, diversified into a full-fledged publishing house. And, our focus on education in the arts, jobs and grants, events and opportunities for artists, and really sort of, a one-stop shop. So
that's
open
great.
to connect always.
Yeah, I'm a frequent visitor, which is great. The 2 companies you might want to have a look at, who I've done some branding and marketing work for recently, and where I'll be happy to introduce you, are, and they're both gaming studios.
Sure.
Is Future Lab. I think they're London based. Do you know them? FUTURLAB, and the other is Rocket Studio. They're in Liverpool. So if they look like useful contacts, just do please let me know. I've got really good contacts.
Oh, absolutely. Particularly with Games Hub, because we're really in that startup mentality. And we do have an agency, Australia and New Zealand based, but we're really trying to weed between the information out there that who's a actual agent for gaming publishers in the US and the UK is quite tricky. And most of our audience is coming from the US and the UK. So and Asia, but it's really important for us to have those connections, and please send me through.
Yeah, sounds like you and I might have a mutually beneficial one-to-one as well when we get the chance. Excellent.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And Mark, one of our members is the head of Chinese art at Sotheby's. I don't know whether she would be a useful introduction. Katie Hill, if you want to track her down and see, I'd be happy to introduce you both over LinkedIn. So
That would be fantastic, Mark.
and it
Thank
sounds as though you and Don will have an interesting chat about Yale when you get the chance. So excellent. Thank you very much, Danny. Suzanne, would you like to say hi?
You're muted, Suzanne.
Oh,
I'm a creative producer and programmer. I started my journey in arts journalism, arts features and reviews. And I deputy edited New Theatre Australia while it was still active. And then I went into a bit of marketing. I was communications manager for the Victorian Arts Council for nearly 4 years. And for the last 30 years, I've been working as a programmer, and primarily myself and my late partner had a company called Explosive Media Dynamic Event Management, and we were really at the forefront of public arts events, including the beach at the Arts Centre and for the Commonwealth Games, and tribal expressions for the Commonwealth Games. And my interest is in pursuing interesting artists and community collaborations in Melbourne.
oh, we lost you a little bit there, Suzanne.
Oh.
Not to worry. I think we got most of that, but thank you. And we've connected before, so it's great to see you on here, which is great. Again, website details, LinkedIn profiles, if you'd like to pop them in the chat, if you haven't done so, we'll share the chat file after the meeting, which would be great, which is embarrassing for me because I haven't done that either yet. So I'm going to do that now so that you guys have got me. Where's chat gone? There it is. There you go. There's me. I'll have a good look at that after the meeting. But Suzanne, thank you very much. Sorry, whereabouts were you based again?
In Melbourne.
You're in Melbourne. Excellent.
I'm in the southeast, but I
must share with you
across Melbourne and Victoria.
Okay. I must share with you the fact that I had a conversation with somebody recently on one of my 15-minute one-to-ones, and we realized we had what we've started to call clock praxia, which is a complete inability to work out what time it is in any other area of the world. I really do struggle with that. So you're lucky I'm here.
There's a website, Mark, called World Clock.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you know, I've tried that as well. You know, I'm so badly afflicted by this inability to work it out that doesn't even work.
Well, World Clock just tells you, I deal with clients all over the world, and so I have to address these issues. And I use World Clock, and I found that I've been doing it for years, and after a while it becomes intuitive. Believe me. Yeah,
I'm sure it must. Emily, would you like to introduce yourself? Thank you very much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Thanks. I've stumbled across this, so I'm glad I did, because it's really lovely to meet all of you, and learn about all different areas of what you're all doing. So I suppose my interest, originally I studied at the Victorian College of the Arts, so I trained as an artist, but I haven't worked as an artist since then. So what I have done is work in television at one of the major networks, Channel 9. I then started my own business, which was in animation and visual effects. I had a company for 15 years, And we worked a lot with the television production companies doing the opening titles and graphics packages, and advertising agencies doing a lot of live action production and anything which had a graphics component. And since then, I've gone on to working with XR, VR, and AR and new technologies. I set up a company, a division at the Clemenger Group for one of their companies, a content department. So I set that up for them. And most recent, then I was, long history of different areas. But yeah, I also worked for a company called Hogarth, setting up their metaverse offering, which didn't go too far because there wasn't a lot of interest globally, really. But which finds me now my latest role, which is in a branding company called Cato, Cato Brand Partners, which is a highly successful brand company. And I'm general manager at Cato. And we work with organizations globally. So we work to do all the brand identity and design and logos. We're responsible for many well-known identities. I'll mention a couple of Australian ones, the Commonwealth Bank and Macquarie Bank and Coles Supermarkets. And the company has been going for 53 years, and it's an incredible body of work, and just very talented people here. And it's really interesting, actually, Mark, you mentioned that you're a translator, a Chinese translator. We work with a Chinese client, one of our largest clients. We're working on a museum currently, which is a bee museum, so that the client is a bee manufacturer of bee products, propolis and honey and all kinds of bee products. And we've been working with them as a company for over 12 years. And since then, we started doing the branding, and we moved on to doing packaging design. And then it's been this amazing collaboration where it's turned into establishing a museum for the bee, which is this amazing. And then we've been designing all the landscaping and all the merchandise, all the interiors, and it's just turned into this amazing collaboration. And we're currently working on this amazing animation and immersive light and sound display in the museum. So it's quite an amazing project, really. So I mean, and that's one of the projects that we work on. But I'm looking at other opportunities, both personally and from a company point of view, to grow the business development for what we can do at Cato, but also personally, because I'm very passionate about the arts and just to see where that can take me. So yeah, thank you.
That's great, Emily. Thank you very much. We have an overlap. When I'm not running these, I do a brand discovery workshop, which is because of my background as well, being across the arts and digital and branding and marketing as well. And it's great fun. Some of our members have done it. Jason Levinson is he's a kind of ex-Hollywood content director, gone into the world of B2B, and we've done one recently, and it works both for a personal brand and for a brand. And some of the questions we ask on there are great fun. It finishes up with a brand one. I'll send you the template just to see what you think of that. And in fact, if you go to mark.walmsley.co.uk, you'll find the testimonial videos there, which is great fun. Excellent. Now, I think is Prakash? Are you still here? You're on the phone, Prakash. Have we still got you?
Yes. Hi all. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes. Would you like to introduce yourself for a couple of minutes, Prakash?
I would love to. And I must say, I'm truly amazed at hearing everybody's backgrounds, and there's so much in common. So I'm Prakash. I'm in sunny Singapore. I have a background in television, entertainment, online videos, basically I worked in 3 countries. I'm now in Singapore. I was originally from India, stayed in Australia for about 7 years in Sydney with family, and now working out of Singapore. My background has essentially been, working for Disney and Fox. I launched Disney Plus in the region and also online videos out here. Got into pay TV in Australia about 20 years ago. That's where I came from originally. And now currently I'm on my own journey where I'm starting something quite different actually. It's more about sharing cultures with different societies across the world through music and art. And that's the reason I joined this network.
Are you
so
still
it's
with
all
us,
about,
or did you get cut off?
sorry, am I with you? I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you now. I think you skipped a bit there, but we can hear you now.
Okay, so I'll just go back to what I'm doing right now. I'm on my own journey. My company is called MetaPlay, and what we do is that we are looking at sharing cultures with different societies around the world through music and art. So it's all about music and art education, but it's more about knowing a society, knowing different cultures, and getting more deeper into it. So it's just not a transaction, come and learn piano from me. No, it's more about, getting into the, what's the deep sense behind that particular country, but portraying it through different art forms. We will be launching in about a couple of months' time. The product is being ready, and there's so much that I can work with and I can, share with you guys, because I see a lot of people on this network, being at some stage, somewhat contributing to what we're doing. So I'll pause over here, Mark, because I know I'm outside and I don't want to disturb with the background noise, but let me know if this is okay.
That sounds great, Prakash. Thank you so much for doing that. You did warn us that you're going to have to jump off your laptop onto a phone. So thanks. That sounds great. And thank you. I remember us talking about that in the meeting that we had that we recorded. So thank you very much. Wonderful. That's great. I haven't missed anyone, have I, Don? Don't believe
Nope,
so.
got them all.
That's excellent. So that's great. This is the point at which in a meeting, the word quality, not quantity, has just occurred to me for this meeting. It's a lovely thing to do because we don't often get the opportunity to do such a deeper dive into what we're working on. Don will know this because when it does get a bit frantic, when I think on one event, Don, we had 86 people, and which is great, but it doesn't give the opportunity as we've had just now to tell our story to 6 other people in quite the same level of detail. If anybody springs to mind in your own network who you think you could introduce to somebody you've met here today, do please make a note and do that over LinkedIn. I've already written some down, which is great. One of the things that we do on our when I introduce a new member is we do the arts and culture hot top 10. So I think for a bit of fun and for it to as a bit more of an icebreaker, I'm going to ask you some of the questions that I ask people on that. It's a bit of a giveaway, but is everyone happy to do that? It'll take us only about 5 minutes, but it always offers a surprise and it often triggers an anecdote. So for a breather, I'll work our way around. So I'm going to go clockwise where I can see you. So Emily, I wonder if you could tell us if you have a favorite building.
Oh, put me on the spot there.
I do this I do put people on the spot. By the way, there is a get out. If you don't have a favorite building or you can't think of one, you can throw it back to me and I'll have to come up with one. I've done lots of these.
Look, I'll just say the Opera House is probably a very predictable answer. Sydney Opera House.
As you may have seen, and you will have seen it. I think the image I used to promote this event was some projection and illumination on the Opera House.
Yeah,
it looked it's
I should have picked a Melbourne one. Really, there's so much rivalry between Melbourne and Sydney, but There you go.
Brilliant. Danny, can you recommend a book you've read recently to us, either fiction
Oh,
or
I was just about to
non-fiction?
share my building.
Oh, go on then. Tell us what your favorite building
I
is.
do have a favorite building other than the Opera House here in Sydney. And I'm not sure if everyone's aware of it, but the Frank Gehry, the crumple bag building at UTS, the Chow Chak wing. Anyway, if you haven't seen it, definitely look it up.
I will do.
Gehry is very famous for, he's a Canadian-American architect and his buildings are incredible. Anyway,
Love that.
I am reading, it's on my desk. Oh, you can't see it. Why have I got this weird thing? No, it's not working.
If you hold it in front of you, there we go.
Oh,
Okay.
So it was Dying to Know Day on Tuesday, which is why I'm reading this, and it's a topic that's very dear to me. So I'm reading that. It's about preparedness and like having real conversations in life. So not arts related, but very important.
Love that. It's a book. It's great.
It's a book. It's a book.
Okay.
I do. Sorry, I do
Suzanne.
have to duck off at 10:02 as well. I've dropped you.
Okay, but
sorry.
thank you so much for coming, Danny, and I'll ping you a line for a second for a one-to-one if that's okay. Suzanne, if I had to limit you to one musical genre for the rest of your life, what would you choose?
indie.
Indie.
Yeah.
Okay, love that. Any artists or groups in particular?
Yeah, Mia Ray, Missy Higgins, Kate Miller-Heidke, Sarah Blasco.
Nice. These are not names
yeah.
I'm familiar with, so when I listen back, I'm going to go and track down. I'll be opening Spotify and
Mia Ray's a new
Australian.
one. There's also Maya, who's very young, but I think she might be an up and coming Missy Higgins.
excellent. Now, Mark, this is an interesting one for you as a travelled gentleman. I'm going to let's assume you've been exiled from your current country of residence for some unknown misdemeanor, and you can choose where you're going to live based on your perception of the culture in that country. Where are you off to?
Either France or Italy, I think.
Have you lived in either of those countries before?
I haven't lived in either of them. I haven't even been to Italy. I studied French at school as a kid, and I loved French. It's what turned me on to languages, actually. And I made a number of school trips and did a number of exchange trips. France is beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful country. It's a beautiful language. Many people have their feelings about the French people, and French people have their feelings about the rest of us. But mostly we all get along fine. And the French know how to live. They know how to live. They produce the world's best wine. They produce wonderful food, and they revel in it. And
Brilliant.
you know, it's physically a beautiful country. I mean,
Love
and
it.
Italy similarly, but I've never been there.
Yeah. Thank you. That's great. So we'll allow you go. You can go to France or Italy. I'll give you both. Suzanne gets indie as well, which is great. Don, we've done this before, haven't we?
Yeah, yes, we have. I'm afraid I'm going to not necessarily get the right answer here. So go ahead for it. Go for it.
Well, it can change. What did you have a favorite visual artist when we met last?
I don't know if we talked about that. but Seurat, George Seurat, it would be my favorite visual artist right now. So
Sorry, that skipped
Seurat.
for me.
Seurat.
Seurat.
Yeah.
Seurat. Okay. Love it.
Seurat.
And
Yeah.
can I, given your expertise and passion for choral music, if you could only, what would be your favorite piece of choral music?
It's probably Thomas Tallis's "If He Loved Me." That's probably what it is. I think we talked about that last time too.
Yeah.
But I think it's close to a perfect piece of choral music.
Love that. We spoke about Spem in Alium as well, didn't we? I think
We did. Yeah.
If you haven't listened to Spem in Alium, it's SPEM in ALLIUM. Is it?
I think
John?
so. Yeah.
How many parts is it? It's
40 parts.
40 different parts.
Yeah. Bye-bye, Danny.
Bye, Danny. Thanks for coming. Yeah, it's an incredible piece of music. It's quite long, and it builds and it builds and it builds, and each of those it's almost fugal in that respect, isn't it? In that it's sort of the different parts all come in, and it's only one person per part, so it's a choir of 40 people. I think that's the case, isn't it, Don?
You can do multiples on a part, but usually, that's about what you can work with, is like one per part. Yeah.
No, it's brilliant. I love that. Excellent. Thank you. Oh, Prakash, where's Prakash? Can you hear us still, Prakash?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
There we go.
I'm with you.
You and I have done this before as well, I think. But what about a favorite film from Prakash?
Oh, I love that question, because I can go around the world for that. Which period? You want to go back to the 50s, to the 70s, the 90s, or what?
Take your pick. Take your pick. It's your favorite.
All right. Let's get a bit artsy out here. I think Greece. Greece would be one of my favorites. Yeah.
Love that. There's an interesting fact about the movie Grease. It only cost $6 million to make the movie, and heaven knows what it's grossed since. But it's the biggest factor of difference, apparently, from a movie that cost very, very little, because neither Olivia Newton-John nor John Travolta were big names when they made the movie. But they got paid very little for doing it. But it's grossed so much since. It probably didn't have an opening like Barbie has just had, but that's just, isn't that wonderful that it's the first time I think a female director has hit that kind of had that kind of
$1 billion. Yeah, she cost $1 billion. Fantastic. Yeah.
It's incredible. The numbers are crazy in film. I remember I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, both book and movies, and my brother is a cellist and plays in the London Philharmonic Orchestra, so he got to play on all the soundtracks. And I did get the opportunity. He invited me into Abbey Road, and I got to meet Peter Jackson and Howard Shaw, who wrote all the music. But I was told, I gather that it cost $300 million to make all three movies, and the first one took 600 million at the box office, and that's before you add the second one, that's before you add the Oscar-winning third one, and before you add DVD sales. It's quite and all the streaming since. It's quite staggering. If you get it right, you really get it right, which is fantastic. Anyway, I'm digressing, but anyway, so can I just ask, it's unfortunate that more people didn't join us from I think the 30 who said they wanted to come. That's quite standard, especially if we're not charging for this, which we don't. So the meetings are all free, and the use of the LinkedIn groups is free and will remain so. Would it be a good idea to schedule another one of these and perhaps do these monthly? Would you want to come?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitely.
and it works much better. And Prakash has just put a thumbs up, which is great. So yeah, that would be great, because one of the things and Don knows about this with the events that we've been doing for a year or so, we've obviously had an opportunity to build the audience, and we have the after party is really good fun. We do the hour, and then we linger for about 20 minutes afterwards, and that's where it's become a bit of a kind of open networking. What's going on? Can we help somebody out with a fresh eyes on a problem? So we'll do a little one. I know we've only got 5 minutes left today, but let's do a little one at the moment. If anyone has, I've got a question I want to ask, which will be, oh no, I've already mentioned the fellowship, I think. So, but has anyone got a challenge that they're currently facing that we might be able to brainstorm in 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Mark has.
Sure.
Oh, we all have. That's
Sure.
no surprise.
Well,
Ladies first, if you don't mind, Mark.
sure.
Suzanne.
My challenge is actually on behalf of my brother, I think, particularly because while Prakash is here, he's a television director and has a studio in Melbourne, in Port Melbourne, and he's finding it. John, you know John?
Yeah, I know John.
Oh, great. John Olb.
Sorry, I might not want to ask the question now.
That's okay.
Yeah, is it personal, Suzanne?
Not deeply. I just wanted to say that the industry has taken a big hit in Melbourne, and I thought it might be really good if John, my brother, could meet with Prakash online, for example, or I was going to say you too, Farah, but you already know him.
Yeah, that sounds good. As long as if we've swapped contact details, that will be great, Prakash.
Yeah, sure, Suzanne. I'm more than happy to, if you could send his resume, and I'm happy to have a chat. Just this environment this environment that Mark has set up is so beautiful and wonderful that we have to support and help each other. So we should thank Mark for that. And Suzanne, more than happy to help in any case, in any way I can, son.
Thank you, Prakash.
Thanks, Prakash. Yeah, that's kind of, I get sort of warm glow when I see things like that happen that wouldn't otherwise, which is great. You just never know where it could lead. I remember a friend of mine once stood up at a networking event and said, I'd like an introduction to Richard Branson. And we were both at music college together, but he'd stopped doing music to make luxury tree houses, which was his new startup business. At this event, everybody laughed at him until somebody else stood up. It was a face-to-face event. Somebody else stood up who was also a guest at the event and said, Paul, my cousin is his PA. And 3 months later, he was on Necker Island building luxury tree houses for Richard Branson. And it got better because he had a phone call about another month later, or so, a little bit later. And they said, hello, is that Paul? Said, yeah, this is Elton John. And he said, yeah. He said, I've just been on Necker Island with Richard and I love the tree houses you did for him. Can you do some for me? And then it got even sillier because Gary Barlow then rang him, having been at Elton John's house. And then the owner of the largest water park in the Middle East rang him because he'd been at Gary Barlow's house, and he ended up in the Middle East doing, he now specializes in rope bridges. That's what he does. But he's from one brave stand-up at a networking event saying, please, and Paul gave me Richard Branson's mobile number, which was very kind of him, because I had another friend was at school with him, and a mutual friend of theirs had passed away, so he wanted to make sure that Richard Branson knew about it. And I think the lovely thing about Richard Branson's mobile number is that it's 747-747. I can't remember the first part. I've got it somewhere. I've never dared to ring it, but that would be hilarious. Right, we're up against the hour. I just wanted to say thank you very much, Mark, Emily, and Suzanne. Thank you so much, and Prakash. and Danny and Don, who've had to jump off. But thank you so much for making this pilot a good one. We'll probably do this at the same kind of time, on the same sort of a Thursday towards the, where are we? I know we would normally be doing, I think this is the second Thursday of the month. So I'll pop another one on the website, and I'll put the details on the LinkedIn group and see if we can build the numbers. But do tell your friends if you found it useful and enjoyable, and we'll try and build a bit of a groundswell of people who come along every time. I think that's the case with the UK events now. We've also, because I'm close to London, we're doing face-to-face as well at the end of the month at the Royal Society of Arts. So, but thank you so much. It's been lovely catching up with you all, and we're bang on 2 o'clock your time, or whatever it is your time, Mark. And I'll drop you a line of follow-up, but thank you very much, and I'll let you know when
I
we
still have to
do this
think what
again.
time it is in the UK, Mark. And
It's
if
5
we do
a.m.
more of these, if we do more of these meetings, I worry about your sleep.
I've become professionally nocturnal since lockdown. Don't worry.
Well, thank you very much indeed.
No, thank you, Emily. Thank you, Suzanne.
No, that's
Thank
great.
you.
Nice to meet everybody.
Nice to meet you.